It's good to be here with you today, Mr. O'Brien, in springtime New York, oh Lord. How difficult are you, dear Faith? It's a wonderful day. The flowers are blooming and the nipples are out. Just enough sunlight is there for the females to wear tank tops at night. Their little friend Robin Williams made everyone laugh for 40 years. But behind every joke was a man yelling for assistance. He confined himself to rooms at night to prevent his wife from experiencing severe sleep attacks. He occasionally forgot lines that he had been familiar with for years. He believed that someone was pursuing him, so he concealed his watches and socks when he was at friends' houses. After every scenario, she had to hold him as he sobbed. No one saw the sickness itself, but everyone could see the indicators. After viewing what doctors discovered in his brain, everything we had assumed would alter. Robin Williams' birthplace was known to us as St. at Chicago's St. Luke's Hospital. At first sight, his life appeared to be going well. His mother, Lori Williams, was formerly a model, and his father, Robert Williams, was a senior manager at Ford Motor Company. Their children had everything they could possibly want. Their home was large, and they were wealthy. But Robin's world was frigid. His mother, who was kind but reclusive, made things official rather than informal, while his father was constantly on the move for work. Hugs were uncommon. Love had to be earned. Robin immediately discovered that in order to attract attention, he needed to put on a show, be spectacular or humorous. Just being himself was insufficient. That lesson would stay with him forever. My family moved into a massive 40-room home in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, when I was 12 years old. It was enormous, opulent, and terribly solitary. While his mother was at social gatherings and his father was at work, Robin spent hours, or even days alone himself with just the staff. He didn't, however, put it down and sit about sulking. He filled the place with noise. He would create entire universes, communicate to imaginary pals, mimic family members, and create characters in front of the mirror. His own theater was created in the house. Each chamber served as a stage. There is a humor in every echo. While other children were playing outside, Robin was entertaining ghosts indoors. He started to be hilarious in that peaceful house, where no one informed him what was amusing or not. He figured it out for himself. But there was no escape bias school. Because he was tiny, overweight, and wore spectacles, Robin didn't fit in. His life was ruined by bullies. They punched him, robbed him, and teased him. He returned home with ripped clothes and a wounded sense of pride. Then something changed. He realized that if he made them laugh, they would retreat. They stopped striking. He leaned into it, making an imprint here, a little joke there, and suddenly he felt strong. He protected himself by laughing. It provided him power in addition to keeping him safe. Making others laugh gave him a sense of security, and the more people complimented him on his humor, the more he relied on it until it became his sole skill. Robin has strange bones for a number of reasons. He got them from his mother. Lori Williams could conclude a discussion with a sardonic glance, had a wonderful one-liner, and was quick on her feet. Robin listened intently to her. He learned her rhythms, stops, and how to make people laugh without raising her voice. However, he also noticed something worse. Only when he was on stage did his mother seem to shine. If he stopped being humorous, Robin, she wouldn't grin. He discovered how to maintain the spectacle. Always be aware of your target. Examine the space. It's crucial to be the type of person who receives accolades. He would become famous because he was brilliant at it, but it also made him fearful of silence. When he reached 16, everything changed. After relocating to Tiburon, California, with his family, Robin attended Redwood High School. He met the drama teacher James Dunn there. The raw ability concealed by years of self-defense was something Dunn recognized that no one else did. Since joining the acting department, Robin has been increasingly involved. Here, his voices and figures were praised rather than viewed as strange. At last, he could make something real out of the jumble in his head. His ability to sing thus far astounded his buddies. In an instant, he would transform into a boisterous New Yorker or a bashful British butler. One person made every prompt into a show. For the first time, Robin didn't feel alone. He thought he was being watched. He was involved in more than just the acting club after his junior year. He was prepared for a more significant part and was a member of the theater group. When Robin was accepted into Juilliard, one of the top art schools in the world, in 1973, it was a significant step. That year, he was one of just 2 pupils accepted into their prestigious acting school. The other is Christopher Reeve. However, the fame came at a price. Shakespeare, breathing techniques, rigorous traditional acting, and stage behavior were all taught at Juilliard. Robin's mind was racing with ideas and emotions. He wanted to destroy the rules, not observe them. He began to speak improvisedly as others read monologues. Despite his intelligence, the school was unsure of how to handle him. 3 years later, he was finished. In 1976, he dropped out of school. Everyone was taken aback. It was like quitting the Olympics in the middle of the competition to give up on Juilliard. However, Robin claimed that he would have died if he had stayed. He needed freedom, not tradition. As soon as he returned to California, he began doing stand-up comedy. He performed at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles after first appearing at the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco. He had a powerful style. Not only was he funny, he was funny. In an instant, he transformed from a Russian taxi driver to a disco enthusiast. It was as if he had 10 personalities in one person because of how quickly his voice changed. Instead of merely laughing, the audience leaned forward and listened intently. Comedians such as Mark Twain listened. They were even assisted by Pryor. Robin was a hurricane, not just good. When people exited his shows, their faces hurt from laughing so much. He could complete tasks in 10 minutes that others couldn't finish in an hour. When he first arrived in Los Angeles in 1977, he performed at the Comedy Store on Sunset Strip. TV producers sought out fresh talent there. Gary Marshall discovered him there. Marshall shows, such as Happy Days, were already becoming popular. When he witnessed Robin's behavior one evening, he realized immediately that this man was not merely humorous. He was unique. Thus, he engaged Robin. Robin Williams' quick ascent started with what appeared to be a desperate attempt at originality on Happy Days. The show's director, Gary Marshall, added a spaceman after he and his 8-year-old son, Scott, saw Star Wars in 1977. It was disliked by the authors. They even drew lots to decide who would write the dumb alien episode. On February 28, 1978, however, that odd idea evolved into My Favorite Orkin. It was only supposed to be a dream for Richie Cunningham. After that, Robin Williams arrived to try out. When instructed to sit backwards, he did so. The only stranger who tried out, according to Marshall, was him. TV was forever altered by that one instant. People lost their minds. ABC modified the show to remove the dream portion and make it seem more realistic because so many people like it. After a single performance, a whole new show was created. Later that year, Mork and Mindy was released, and it quickly gained popularity. Nobody anticipated it. The television program, Mork and Mindy, was a national sensation when it debuted on September 14, 1978. In its first season alone, 60 million people watched it every week. After Happy Days, it was the third most watched program in the United States. Despite earning about $15,000 per episode, Robin Williams moved from being unknown to a star overnight. Considering how hilarious he was by himself, he was a huge thing. His image was on the front cover of Time in March 1979. The children had toys, coloring books, lunchboxes, and more t-shirts. Mork was everywhere. However, despite the laughter, the writers were really attempting to survive. Many people believe that Robin made up his lines as he went along. That falsehood infuriated the authors. They worked frantically starting at 10 a.m. and chuckled, saying, "We're up until 4 a.m. writing Robin's ad-libs," just to stay up with him until 4 a.m. While others, like David Mish, lived off of sweets, others took drugs. Robin had read the plot once and knew it by memory, so he didn't wing it. He actually lost his mind during practice, but he killed every line when the cameras rolled. He was precise in his pandemonium. Hollywood couldn't ignore him because he was too good. In 1980, Williams landed his first major motion picture role in Popeye. It had a $20 million budget and was filmed in Malta, where a full hamlet was constructed and is still accessible to tourists. Despite earning over $50 million, the film received negative reviews. Williams mocked the difficulty of the shoot by referring to the set as Stella Goldman. Nevertheless, it demonstrated that he could carry a film even if the plot or directing didn't suit him. He was famous. While his career took off, he was battling a horrible problem. Despite this, Popeye was not a huge blockbuster, but it did lead to the parts that launched his career. Good Will Hunting, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Dead Poets Society. During the Mork and Mindy years, Williams was consuming 1 gram of cocaine every 2 days. Because drug usage was so prevalent in Hollywood at the time, the doctor didn't believe him even when he told him about it in 1991. However, friends noticed how awful it was. Robin noticed a gram in his pocket back in the early 1980s, Mike Binder said. He went to the loo and returned with the vial empty after I requested for a hit. He took a long time. Others claimed that he pleaded for any blow before to performances, stating, "I can't go on without it." Cocaine, however, calmed him down rather than getting him high. Most people get crazy on coke. It slowed me down. He used cocaine as a cover. Everything was altered by the shock. On March 5, 1982, John Belushi passed away due to an excessive amount of speedball. The previous evening, he and Robin had spent time at the Chateau Marmont. Belushi appeared worn out when he played the guitar while high on Quaaludes. Robin disclosed to his spouse that he was seeing a difficult, intimidating woman. Belushi would receive the poison that killed him from Kathy Smith. Robin was astonished when he learned the following day on the set of Mork and Mindy. "I was with him last night," he repeated repeatedly. When Belushi passed away, Hollywood was horrified. Robin told himself, "Look at you, you little frail," because he found it frightening. Being a father was the final motivator. Robin's son, Zachary, was born in April 1983. Your small change, that could have been him. That would have been him if he didn't stop. 6 months prior, Williams had abruptly stopped using drugs and alcohol. It was just plain grit, with no treatment, no rehab, and no Betty Ford. He later remarked, "The Belushi tragedy was scary, and I knew I couldn't be a dad and live that kind of life." By that time, Mork and Mindy was ended. His friend had passed away, and he was on the verge of becoming a father. His friend had informed him, "He just quit." A fork in the road appeared to be present. Many individuals went down. Williams made the decision to clean up, and he did. He spent 20 years sober. Between 1983 and 2003, he did not use drugs or alcohol. Instead, he used all the energy he had for pharmaceuticals to work. He rose to become one of the most adored celebrities in the world. More than merely films like Mrs. Doubtfire, Good Will Hunting, Dead Poets Society, and Patch Adams were lifestyle choices. It kept him tidy, but he worked too much. Riding a bike was another method he found to unwind. Instead of hiding behind narcotics, he rode his bike to relax, and many heard him declare, "Cycling saved my life." However, stress accompanied that level of concentration. People assumed Robin would always be on. "Anyone can fall into that kind of life," he stated in an interview. "You can only be sad in private." Only in 1987 did everyone realize how powerful he was. That year, his involvement was more than just jokes and noise. He was a military radio DJ on Good Morning Vietnam. The anguish of battle struck you like a punch to the gut after he made you laugh so hard. Most of his broadcast tirades were spontaneous. He was simply let go by the boss. The resulting film brought in $123. 9 million people worldwide on a meager $13 million wage. In addition, he received his first Oscar nomination in his big-screen career. He went even further in his subsequent novel, Dead Poets Society, which was published 2 years later. He portrayed Mr. Keating, an English teacher who stood atop desks and whispered, "Carpe diem," while paraphrasing Thoreau and Whitman, making poetry more than just a subject he taught. It was something else, Robin, not stand-up. He spent weeks learning the ins and outs of teaching and memorized more than 200 lines of poetry. It brought in $235. $9 million, his second Oscar nomination. He came to represent educators, idealists, and anybody who aspired to liberation. Then 1992 arrived. His voice as the genie in Aladdin. He recorded 30 hours of incredibly creative thoughts, impressions, improvisations, and energy, and people all across the world were blown away by it. There was no artist who could have predicted it. It earned over $54. 100,000 and permanently altered the graphics. After that, movie studios wanted more than simply voices, they wanted stars. But behind the scenes, Williams was furious. He agreed to play the role for only $75,000, a significant discount from his usual pay, but only if there wasn't a lot of publicity. Disney violated that pledge. By 1995, the genie had generated over $1 billion in revenue for them. Williams will always remember it. The 1993 film, Mrs. Doubtfire, earned $441 million at the box office, and he wore a frock, wig, and a heavy British accent. 5 million worldwide, making it the year's second most watched film. For 4 hours, Williams sat on a beauty chair. To become Euphemia Doubtfire, 5 hours must be spent each day. He transformed, not just acted. He took vocal lessons, watched elderly women at shopping centers, and made up lines on the spot, take after take. He kept inventing up fresh lines on the spot, so it took him 15 tries to get it perfect in a dinner scene. Funny, but also about suffering, motherhood, love, and loss. Rubber and laughter were all over it. However, Good Will Hunting, in 1997, did better than any other film. He portrayed Sean Maguire, a melancholy, quiet therapist who assisted a deceased genius. There were no fireworks or noises. It was quite silent. "It's Not Your Fault" was a spontaneously created scene that devastated Matt Damon's and our hearts. This time, Williams won, not just got named. Finally, an Oscar. On March 23, 1998, he was giving it his all as he stepped out on stage and stated, "Thank you, Ben and Matt. I still want to see some ID." But unpleasant things are hidden by celebrity. He broke down in 2003 while filming in a remote area of Alaska because he was afraid, cold, and alone. That's how he put it. You could see it, but he said it wasn't the end of the world. He had been sober for 20 years, but when he saw a bottle of Jack Daniels in a store, his lower power murmured, "Just a taste." It was over. He hadn't used drugs since 1982. They then spent 3 years drinking in secret. He continued to act and work, but on the inside, he was collapsing. Later, he claimed to have known it was bad within the first week. "I was buying so many bottles, I sounded like a wind chime walking down the street," stated the man. She remarked, "But it wasn't funny, not really." Those 3 years were not enjoyable at all. He was unable to stop. Finally, in 2006, his family took action. Zach, his son, later said, "It wasn't kind. It was an ultimatum. I don't think he'd be alive today if he had kept drinking." William spent 2 months at Hazelden, one of the top recovery facilities in Oregon, confronted the reality, and then made a weekly commitment to attend AA meetings. He said that his initial recuperation in the 1980s was incomplete. The one question he had yet to address was, "How honest do you want to live?" But despite his efforts to stay sober, the debts were killing him. There were large payouts and 2 divorces. According to multiple news outlets, he lost between $20 and $30 million. His first wife, Velarde, received $50,000 each month for the rest of her life. She received around $500,000 in 1989 alone. His second marriage made matters worse. Marcia Garkas ended their relationship in 2008, barely 2 years after he became clean. His drug addiction was the source of his stress. Despite the pain, Williams made an effort to laugh. He once claimed that the Latin word for alimony means to rip a man's genitalia out through his wallet. Eventually, the funds ran out. In 2012, he listed Villa Cerrillo, a 653-acre estate in the Napa Valley, for $35 million. It featured a wine cellar, an art gallery, a library, and a theater. But it had to leave. He made almost $130 million in his career, but he was cutting back to survive, telling Parade magazine, "I just can't afford it anymore." Robin Williams, who was 57 at the time, nearly passed away on his Weapons of Self-Destruction tour in March 2009. He was still among the most hilarious persons on the planet. His respiration was labored. It was more than simply fatigue. His heart was deteriorating, as the physicians could see. He needed open-heart surgery, which is quite risky. In addition to replacing his aortic valve, they also repaired his mitral valve and attempted to correct his irregular heartbeat. It was that awful. His sibling had passed away following a similar procedure 2 years prior. That fear stayed with him. Although the procedure was successful, there were invisible scars. Many patients who undergo these procedures develop depression or even PTSD. Some people experience memory loss or cognitive alterations as a result of trauma, anesthesia, or tiny blood clots in the brain. William survived, but his life changed forever. After 4 years, he made an attempt to return to television with The Crazy Ones. In 2013, it started off well. There were advertisements for the film everywhere, and he co-starred with Sarah Michelle Gellar. But the magic was short-lived. After just 22 episodes, the show ended in May 2014 due to a decline in viewership. That was really hurtful to Williams. He believed that he had failed. He was going nuts behind the scenes, telling a pal, "My face is on billboards all over town, and it's all on my back." Stress related to money added to the burden. The show ended, and he had to sell his $29 following 2 divorces. $9 million for Napa Ranch. He felt humiliated, insulted, and as though he had no more jobs. His confidence was rapidly eroding. On the set of Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, things deteriorated. Robin's lines started to fade. Such a thing did not exist previously. He was now questioning each take, whereas before he would conjure up entire scenes on the fly. He would call the director late at night and inquire, "Do I suck? What's going on?" He used to cry in her arms at the end of most days, according to one of his makeup artists. What was happening had no name, and it was illogical. But already, every part of his brain was under attack. After the fact, his wife Susan discovered that he had Lewy body dementia. No one at the moment understood why Robin, who had the most acute intellect in comedy, was struggling to think and talk clearly. At home, things were far worse. He couldn't sleep. At night, he suffered from horrible dreams. To protect his wife, he relocated his bed to another room because he would scream, flail, or act out his nightmares. Just to make sure he didn't hurt anyone, he occasionally locked himself in his stepson's room. There was more to it than bad sleep. His REM sleep behavior disturbance was one of the most obvious symptoms of Lewy body dementia. He had awful days because of the dreadful nights. His mind became a labyrinth. He experienced bouts of paranoia and terrifying panic episodes. In order to protect his expensive watches, he once drove them to a friend's house while wearing a sock. People were in danger, he believed. He believed his companions were being followed. Sometimes, these paranoid episodes lasted up to 48 hours. He was stuck and unable to escape. To make matters worse, he was aware of a problem. In May 2014, they diagnosed him with Parkinson's disease, but that didn't adequately explain the situation. In addition to shaking, he was also seeing things, becoming anxious, and losing track of simple things. When they asked him, "Am I schizophrenic? Do I have Alzheimer's?" he realized they were hiding something from him. When doctors eliminated one symptom, another one appeared, according to his wife, who compared it to whack-a-mole. The primary medication for Parkinson's disease, levodopa, didn't do anything to assist either. At times, it exacerbated his nightmares. That ought to have instructed them. People with Lewy body dementia do not respond well to Parkinson's medications. Rather than becoming better, Robin went worse. More anxiety. More misunderstanding. More fear. Susan watched her loved one go. On some days, he was clear, while on others, he was terrified and petrified. At night, when he slept, he yelled. During the day, he would occasionally stand motionless, absorbed in his own thoughts. He repeatedly questioned him about his insanity. That he was correct is regrettable. He had almost 40 indicators of Lewy body dementia, but no one saw them in time. He experienced erroneous beliefs, uncertainties, hallucinations, and memory loss in waves. One moment he was well, the next he lost. His situation was so terrible that doctors later referred to it as one of the worst they had ever seen. He had Lewy bodies, which are collections of aberrant proteins that damage the neurological system in almost every area of his brain. Robin Williams wasn't merely worn out or depressed. No one could describe the illness he had in his head. A disease that robbed him of his memories, his sense of self, and ultimately his will to live. On August 11, 2014, his body was found in his house in Tiburon, California. He hung himself with a belt around his neck. He had a pocket knife nearby and minor cuts on his wrist. He was found by his personal assistant. His age was 63. When Robin Williams died in 2014, there was a massive hole in the globe. However, beneath the humor, charm, and quick wit lurked something far worse. His final year was puzzling. He had anxiety, hallucinations, confusion, paranoia, difficulty sleeping, and unexpected difficulties moving about. Even the top doctors he saw were unable to solve it. They initially believed it to be that, but they were mistaken. The autopsy came next. What they discovered astonished several of the present authorities. Robin's entire brain was overtaken by Lewy bodies, which are clusters of a dangerous protein known as alpha-synuclein. They weren't in one location. They were located in his brainstem, limbic system, neocortex, and even the amygdala, which controls emotion and memory. It appeared as though nearly all of the healthy cells in his brain had been destroyed by a wildfire. Dr. Bruce Miller, a renowned neurosurgeon at UCSF, reviewed the findings. He wasn't lying when he said that no area of his brain was left untouched. He was referring to the full destruction of parts of the brain that are typically unaffected by neurodegenerative disorders. In Robin's instance, the damage was so severe that Dr. Miller later expressed his surprise that Robin was still able to walk and speak in his final days. This kind of injury is quite uncommon. It was one of the worst cases of Lewy body dementia that the doctors had ever seen, they added. The anxiety, mood swings, hallucinations, and abrupt decline in health all made sense. He wasn't simply sick. His brain was being disassembled from the inside out in a deliberate manner. Things got worse as this illness spread to the wrong regions. Lewy bodies were abundant in the amygdala, a part of the brain that aids in emotion regulation, causing extreme anxiety and frightening hallucinations. Additionally, it entered his brainstem, which is crucial for movement and fundamental functions. This indicated that his body was not producing enough dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that causes movement. Parkinson's patients experience a decrease in this same chemical. That's why he began to stiffen and shake. But it wasn't simply dopamine. Acetylcholine, which aids in memory and concentration, was also depleted by the Lewy bodies, since they reached his basal forebrain and cortex. Robin was losing his mind because both of his hormones were out of balance. One minute he was unable to move, the next he was hallucinating. He was losing himself, losing control, and forgetting things. The entire scene was terrifying. Not only did Robin Williams have dementia, but it was a particular kind that appeared practically predestined to obliterate everything that made him special. Susan Schneider Williams, his wife, concurred with 4 other medical professionals who said this was one of the worst examples they had ever seen. The devastation was too great. There was no medication, surgery, or other interventions that might have prevented what was happening to him.